Right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm here this week with Danny. Oh, you just muted. Go ahead and unmute, Danny.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
And Colleen is currently leading the helm at teaching animal Reiki. So she will be back with us next week. She is going to be at the Q&A podcast that is tomorrow. I know those of you that are watching this later on YouTube will have missed that, but for all of you that are here live, our monthly Q&A podcast is tomorrow, and that's where you can join live and ask questions and talk about some Reiki topics. And you're welcome to join that relatively anonymously. You can keep your video, your audio off. There's ways to ask questions in the chat anonymously, all of those kinds of things that we explain at the beginning of the podcast before we usually start the recording. So the Q&As, the live Q&As are kind of some weird dates these next 2 months. So we have one tomorrow is March 6th. And I'm going to go ahead and screen share this again. Let me get to the calendar. Because this is always a place that you can go and look at our schedule to find things that we are doing. We try to keep it updated up here, but sometimes, you forget to take something down or forget to put something up. And so you can always find this here. This is under the classes tab, and we are under the calendar, and that's where we're at. So the podcast this month is March 6th, and then next month it's extra late. It is the April 24th. And then it starts to go kind of back to normal, where it's usually like the second or third Wednesday of the month. So just a heads up with that, they're kind of on weird dates. And we are getting closer to our website being done. So hopefully some of those issues will no longer be an issue anymore once that is done. All right. So I think that's the technical things. Let's see. We've got classes. We're kind of off with actual Reiki classes until mid to the end of April. We've got Reiki 1 and 2 on the 20th and 21st of April, Reiki Master the 22nd through the 24th. And then the following week, we have Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Animal Reiki Master. So you can go to our website to find more information about that. You can always email us. Calling at Reiki Lifestyle is the best email to ask any questions around anything. Danny, did I kind of get everything? I think I did.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So as most of you know, the format for this, for these distance Reiki shares is we talk about a Reiki topic, and we also do a guided meditation. And so we've been talking about some of the kind of more emotional aspects over the last kind of almost 2 months now. Because the thing about Reiki is that the good thing about it is that it does that work, it does spiritual work, but it also can be used in a very practical manner as well. And so that is where we're going to kind of be taking this now, is into a, I don't want to say more practical topic, because working on our invisibility and our voices, the most practical topics, right? Those are the most practical topics because they help us in all aspects of our life. But we've had a lot of requests. I mean, kind of always. It's always in our classes. It's always in our classes. It is one of the things that we get in our Q&As often enough. The messages that we get, emails that we get, is around the topic of what is Reiki. And all of you are here in this Reiki share. Some of you might be new to Reiki and still kind of trying to figure that part out for yourself, but you have probably at least heard about it or experienced it in a session or something like that to get this far, right? To be able to, or to know enough to join us. even if you're just kind of curious about it right now. So I think that one of the big things is, how do we explain it to people? Because Reiki is one of those things that is that all of us know that it's like, well, it's hard to explain, but it is, one of those things that you really understand once you have really experienced it. But that's the hard part about it, because not everybody is necessarily willing to experience it. And you still do have to explain it. And then, let alone, you've entered into this, new foray, or this foray of Reiki in general. And even still, sometimes it can be challenging to explain what it is. When Colleen and I were talking about this subject, she's like, I still kind of stumble on about like, what is Reiki, because it is really one of those things that's so experiential. So that was kind of what led us to this, because we were together. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, and we were talking about how we're business partners, and somebody was asking us, oh, what is Reiki? And so it's funny, because like each of us kind of have different explanations around it. So what I said is, oh, it's like an energy healing modality. And what she said, oh, it's a Japanese stress reduction technique. And so it kind of got us onto this conversation around it, because it is such a common question. It is a question that even experienced Reiki practitioners can kind of try to find their words around. And also, it can vary depending on who you're talking to, right? So how I'm going to answer that question to somebody, if we're in a medical setting, or maybe I'm talking to somebody that comes from a really scientific background, is going to be different than how I am going to say it to somebody that, is maybe, one of the ones that I get a lot is parents from my daughter's school, when they ask what I do and I tell them what I do. Some of them know what it is, and others are like, huh, what is that? Which is always, doesn't it, when we're in this world, we forget that like people don't know what it is. And I'm like, oh yeah, you probably haven't heard of it. That makes sense. And so we were talking about that piece of it, of, really coming up with our elevator pitches when people are asking really more detailed questions about it. Because I know for me now, I've gotten to the point that I don't try to fully explain it to everybody that I meet, right? That they're going to ask what I do, and I tell them. And yeah, I will say, like Joe said in the chat, I say it's acupuncture without needles. That is a easy way to be able to kind of describe it. And I do describe it that way often enough, because most people know what acupuncture is. And so there is that aspect of it, but I've kind of gotten to the point of like, I'll just say maybe one sentence. Maybe your answer would be Japanese stress reduction technique. Maybe your answer would be, and it's an energy healing modality. There's all sorts of like that kind of one-liner that you might answer somebody. And at that point, they're either going to perk up and say, oh, like, tell me more about that. Or they're just going to be like, oh, okay, and kind of blankly stare at you, or having all sorts of thoughts within, their head about like, oh, okay, yeah, you're one of those. All right. And so, I've gotten to the point where like, that's kind of my opener with people, of one of those two things, kind of depending on who I'm talking to. And then also what is, going to just channel out, what kind of comes out of my mouth in that time. I know in my generation and kind of younger, a lot more people are aware of like what energy healing is, what crystal healing is. And so like when it comes to my parents, the parents at my kids' school, I might just say, oh yeah, I do Reiki. And some of them are going to be like, oh, I know what that is. Like I was wearing my sweatshirt the other day that said Reiki on it. And one of the parents was like, oh, you do Reiki? My sister does Reiki. And so, you've got that in with the conversation. And then I was at a birthday party a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "Oh yeah, oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Reiki." She goes, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, it's an energy healing modality." She goes, "Oh, okay." Actually, a person that I would have expected to ask more questions about, just, based on the few conversations that we've had before. And then she just dropped it. And I was like, okay, no problem. I don't have that kind of need anymore to try to then explain more about myself, because with, that peripheral group of people, I, it's one thing if they're close to you or something like that. And we'll get into that as well. And, kind of what it means to go further into the conversation. But if they aren't more interested in it, then that's okay. They don't need to be my people, or maybe they do, and they just don't have a interest in it. And that's fine too. I know plenty of people that I'm friends with, plenty of people, and they don't have a further interest in it. And I'm okay with that too. So there's that piece of it where you kind of have like your one line of what it is. If I'm in a medical facility and somebody asks me and they don't know what it is, I am probably going to use, oh, it's a stress reduction technique that originated from Japan. And again, they're going to ask more or they're not. But it is going to be based on kind of, all of the different ways that we might explain Reiki. And so I would say that one of the places that becomes a little bit more complex is when we're explaining it just that one step further than that. Like maybe it's a family member. Oh, I'm going to go take this Reiki class. What is Reiki? And you have to explain it a little bit more than that one line. Or somebody might be a bit more interested than just the one line, and they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you mean by that? And like, how does that work?" And that's when it can come into more of, an elevator pitch. And a lot of you probably know what an elevator pitch is, but an elevator pitch, just in case, an elevator pitch is, the term came from being able to explain what you do or what your product is in the time that it takes you in an elevator to get like from the ground floor to an office. And so that was like the origination of what an elevator pitch is. So it's a quick kind of summary of what you do that you can say in a short amount of time. So usually it's considered like, I know that there's more technical pieces to it than that, but it's maybe like a small paragraph or less in how you are going to explain further what Reiki is. And there is actually templates that you can use for elevator pitches. And so, you can Google those and it gives you a template for it, for an elevator pitch, so that you can fill in, how you think of Reiki or the ways that you think of Reiki. And we are actually going to do, our guided meditation is going to be a little bit different today, because one of the things that Reiki also does, especially that mental emotional symbol, the SHK symbol, can really help us with some of these really practical things. And having the Reiki energy to help you to be able to really find the words that are true to your heart, that are true to your style of practice, because we're going to have a variety of lineages in this circle. We're going to have a variety of people that are going to come from different backgrounds, that are going to be surrounded by different people. So in this circle, we could have people, we have all different ages. We're going to have different people with different belief systems. We're going to have people that think of Reiki differently from each other. And we're also going to have people that are going to be in different professions. So, how do you explain it to your family? How do you explain it to your coworkers if they ask, how do you explain it? Let's say you're a nurse and you know, maybe somehow want to bring it into your job, your work, your medical profession, and that extends out past just a nurse. But we know that that's a common place that people train in Reiki, to be able to support them in their work, and be able to support their patients and themselves in their work. Also, that would extrapolate out to any animal Reiki or animal facilities. You know, you can continue to extrapolate it out. And then, you know, like I have to at my school commonly, you know, that's something that I'm presented with maybe as close to once a week, you know, sometimes a little longer than that. So I have to explain it at my school. So how am I going to do that based on the different environments that I may be in? So there is kind of the general statement that I'm going to have. However, I might adapt that based on who I'm talking to. And because we all have different experiences of all of this, with this template, you can have the Reiki energy help and come in and maybe even release the noise of all of the different ways that it might be explained, or maybe the different complex relationships that you might have to explain it to, or the complex situations that you might need to explain it within. That Reiki can come in and help you find the words that are true to your heart, true to your perception and your belief system, or your lineage, or your experience with it, and help you to, you know, kind of come up with your own elevator pitch. Because I can give you an example and you might even be like, perfect, I like that. But I also want it to be from your heart, from your mind. And that is a way, this is an example, that is a way that, you know, Reiki can work in very practical ways as well. That it is used, again, we use it physically, we use it spiritually. You can also use it mentally and emotionally also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a couple of elevator pitches, and then I'm going to also give a little bit of a template of how to do your elevator pitch. I'm going to put these in the show notes of our YouTube and also our podcast. So if you want to go and copy and paste them from there, you're welcome to. Also, you can just write your own if you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then we'll go into a bit of a template of an elevator pitch. And then when we do the guided meditation, I'm going to, you know, you're welcome to write it down, or you can just be in the receiving and then write it down later and some of the ideas that come to you with it. All right, so let me go ahead and read this. Okay, so if it's just kind of a general one, that's how you chat, Joe. Reiki is a gentle yet powerful form of energy healing originating from Japan, designed to promote balance, healing, and wellness across your physical, emotional, and mental states. By channeling universal life force energy through the hands, a Reiki practitioner can help you release stress, alleviate pain, and enhance your body's natural healing abilities. It's a non-invasive, safe practice that complements traditional medical treatments. It's always one that I make sure I say is complementary to traditional medical treatments, offering a holistic approach to well-being. Whether you're seeking relief from specific ailments or striving for a greater sense of peace and vitality, Reiki offers a unique path to achieving harmony and overall health. Interested in exploring, and then there's the question, interested in exploring how it can benefit you personally, which is a little, I probably wouldn't say that. So when it comes to that, I know that that is a mouthful. I know that I probably wouldn't say it exactly in that way if I'm in a conversation. You know, that's something that is kind of coming from like a website idea. It's a little more formal. I'm going to talk about it in a little less formal way. However, what this does is it gives me a baseline in the way to explain it, how I can take from that and put it into a more conversational way. Now, I'm also going to read an elevator pitch from a more medical or science background as a Reiki or biofield therapy. So this is more, what I'm doing is there's lots of different ways that you can explain it. This is just showing you a difference in the language that I might use depending on who I'm talking to. So Reiki is recognized as a biofield therapy, a form of energy healing that interacts with the complex dynamic field of energy and information that surrounds and permeates the human body. It's grounded in the concept that human beings are not just physical bodies, but are also made up of intricate energy fields that influence health and well-being. By applying a hands-on or near-body technique, Reiki practitioners aim to balance the biofield to support the body's intrinsic healing mechanisms. While empirical research is ongoing, preliminary studies suggest that Reiki can play a supportive role in reducing stress, enhancing relaxation, and potentially improving patient outcomes in integrative health settings. As a complementary approach, Reiki offers a non-invasive, risk-free adjunct to conventional medical treatments, emphasizing holistic wellness and the interconnectedness of the body, mind, and spirit from a bioenergetic perspective. So you can see that is going to be a bit of a difference in how I'm going to explain it. So, I'm going to explain it to parents a bit different, that it can help to, bring in that balance at a young age. It can help with stress reduction, can help with things like sports or test anxiety, or just the anxiety that can be from being in school with people, especially if there's challenges for them with maybe other students, things like that. I'm going to explain it to people who are seeking animal Reiki differently, and how it can help with their animals and their overall well-being, help with pain reduction, help with balance and life force and vitality, if they have anything going on with their animal. So I'm going to explain it a little bit differently for that. And then, like, if you're trying to explain it in your work, Reiki is a tool for stress management and improved focus. So there's that. And then to my spiritual community, to people that I know that are into these kinds of modalities, I'm going to just go there. So I feel comfortable with that when they have a different perspective about these kinds of topics, I'm going to feel comfortable pretty well going there. And then when we're talking about religious, if from a religious context, this is where maybe I would tread a little lighter depending on who I'm talking about or who you are as well in that scenario. As I'm going to say, I think of it kind of as a stress reduction technique is going to be first, complementary therapy, and it is to me a connection to things like prayer, and how I think of sending prayers, as far as language that might be a more of an understanding of a connection with that. And that is one area where it kind of depends on who I'm talking to. And if I'm going to go further, then it's just a Japanese stress reduction technique. So those are the ways that the different ways that I'm going to look at explaining it. Of course, it's going to vary from who, time to time as well. Sometimes I'm going to say it better than other times, that for sure still happens. And so, Danny, I don't know if you have anything to add around this. Oh,
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I have a couple things.
Actually, I was saying it and then
I know. I do. Sometimes for people that aren't Reiki, don't know a lot about Reiki or energy healing, they know me. And so I just say, I can't explain it. It just works. I mean, and they know me well enough to be like, wow. I mean, I came from a construction project management background, so worked with engineers, and it was either right or wrong. So for me to say that, they just kind of believe me, or I'll say, let me just show you. let me, put my hands on their shoulders or something. But I wanted to share this story. I was with family a week or two ago, and we were having lunch, and they were saying, "Oh my gosh, our neighbor, they have this dog and they put it in a stroller and they walk it around." And they go, "They even have a counselor for it. Can you imagine?" And I'm like, "Hello, I'm an animal Reiki practitioner. That's what I do." And they're like, "Oh." And so then I explained it. I'm like, "Yeah," I go, it's for the caregiver and the animal, and just a little bit, not too much, too long or anything. But it was really funny because they're like, "Oh, okay." So, it was, just being confident with it too.
Oh, thank you, Danny. That is
Hmm.
a great point of like, yeah, I don't know. I may not be able to explain it. And you're right, because I do have friends that are very science oriented, and that's the same thing. They know me, they trust me. And so I was like, and I've had that happen where it's like I give them Reiki and they're like, whoa. Same. I can't explain it, but I know it works. Even though we know we have more research that is being done around these topics and kind of the unexplained things. We know that there are definitely aspects of quantum physics that can explain, energy work and some of those kinds of things. But yeah, I think that's such a great point, Danny. And that, yeah, you might just say, well, I don't know what to tell you. It just works. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uh, talk about talk about the template a little bit with the elevator pitch. Now, this isn't perfect. Um, I would probably do a little bit of a different take on this for Reiki specifically, but this is kind of the overall idea of an elevator pitch. So, you're going to be either already introduced or introducing yourself. That's kind of the first part of the elevator pitch, right? Because it is meant to, the concept behind it is meant to be for somebody that you don't know at all. So that, take that with a grain of salt, the introduction of yourself. And then you're going to be talking about, the need or the problem. So that is where you are talking about in the different, places that you might explain it, is that the stress is the issue, right? The stress is the problem that you might be talking with people about. Or, in the example of parents and the different needs of the kids, what are the needs that the kids have that Reiki can help them with? What are the needs in general that people need that this can help them with? And I think most of us are going to explain it as a stress reduction technique. So, stress would be the need, anxiety would be the need, pain management would be the need. But if I'm in a place where I feel comfortable talking about the energy healing parts of it, I'm going to say energetic balance. I'm going to say, energetic healing. I'm going to say those parts of it that that are the need for people, which is also true. I might feel comfortable with that with a lot of different groups of people, that, we need that overall balance for our wholeness and our wellness. So that's the need. So you're going to have the need as a part of your elevator pitch. Then you're going to have your solution, right? Reiki is your solution to this need because it helps with pain management, because it helps with stress reduction, because it can help with that filling up of life force energy with your balance, your overall wholeness. So there's the solution to the problem, and that's Reiki. Now, if you want to continue going further, you can explain different benefits of it as well. So, if you're talking, because it's an easy one for me, if you're talking about a child's, I have a 7-year-old daughter. And so if I'm talking about the problem that I might have with her, one of the things that I really use Reiki for is her bedtime routine. She still has, a lot of fear of the dark. She used to have really, oh gosh, not detailed dreams. Like she used to have really big dreams, and they used to actually be kind of a lot of bad dreams. So so there's the problem, right? And so I was using Reiki with her at night for that filling up of good energy. I was using Reiki over her bed to kind of put that bubble of light. It also is going to do stress reduction for her as well, with the dark, with bedtime, because then she's going to have bad dreams, some of those kinds of things that also help to contribute to how Reiki helps with it. Those are the benefits of the solution. We know in a medical field, the benefits of our solution of Reiki is pain reduction. And this is a place that we have research on. It's pain reduction, shorter duration of medication needed, and less stress, as well as a few other things that we have research on. So those are some of the things we're going to do that benefit of Reiki, that benefit of the solution. And then at that point, people are going to be interested in it and ask more questions or not, or maybe want to receive your information or not. But all of these things can, this kind of template of it can help you to narrow down the ways. And then, you might even want to practice it, because that is something that can happen too. It still happens that we get kind of caught off guard with it, and we end up stumbling over our words with it, because people ask us in unexpected times and ways and things like that. And so, I know that it can be helpful to practice it, especially if you're relatively new to Reiki, or if this is still something that is challenging, is like, oh gosh, I don't know how to explain it. Then this would be one of those things that you'd want to kind of get your elevator pitch down, and then practice it a bit, so you know what you want to say, and what you want to say in the different situations that you may come across. So that is the idea of elevator pitches for Reiki and explaining what is Reiki. Danny, is there anything that you want to add before anything else you want to add?
No, I think you covered it, and you're right. I mean, I used to volunteer Reiki in medical situations, and I wouldn't even say hardly anything. I'm just like, it's a relaxation technique, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Didn't go, and I was even in situations where people didn't speak English, and so there was no communication. And so I would just, just go around and do a Reiki session, and they were just, hugging, or the children would know how to speak English, and they would talk to me and like, teach me what you just did. And so sometimes it doesn't even need to be words. So.
Yeah, I love that too. Thank you so much. That's a really great perspective too. All right. Well, and I agree. There are some situations, there's some things going on in the chat, for those of you that are watching later. I agree. There are some things that are some of the challenging situations. I live in more rural Oregon, and we do have a lot of fundamentalism out where I live. And so I don't want to be in a place that is, in any sort of reverse judgment at all. But I do know that can be a more challenging aspect of explaining Reiki. And I know with family members, that has definitely been something that we've experienced in our family, that can be really challenging as well. Also, having said that, using the Reiki energy, asking the Reiki energy to come in and support you in your messaging around that can be really helpful, because this is one of the places, again, that it also can be supportive in a practical way too. And so, this is one of those places that, especially that mental emotional symbol, can really help you in your own kind of viewpoint of that. Also, how much you want to say about it. Is there an attachment to that? I know it's easier when it's people on the periphery than it is when it's people who are in your own family, or in your friend group, or those kinds of situation when it's closer to you. And so I do understand that that is a more challenging place for it. Again, I don't know if I have an answer for that. I know that I have experienced it, and I know kind of how I react to that, but I'm not saying that that is going to be how I do it is not going to necessarily be the right way for everybody. For me, I have gotten to the point where I just try to love people anyway, and if they have an issue with it for me or about me, I just try to call in Reiki for myself and ask it to support me in my journey with it and more self-love for me. And if I can be a reflection of that, if I can hold more compassion, if I can be more compassionate within myself, then that's sometimes all I can do. And as far as the words are concerned, sometimes you can explain it and it's not necessarily going to still be received. And so, I've kind of had to come to that level of acceptance with it at this point. I don't try to change anybody's mind. I don't try to convince anybody of it anymore. And I'm not saying that's right for everybody, because for some people that is our journey, and that's okay too. And Reiki can support us as in that aspect as well. But what I can try to do is if I can try to embody more love, which is what I believe is at the heart of that, those ascended masters, anyways, then even though it might be portrayed differently in this time and space, then if I can embody more love, to me, that is what I can do. If I can be Reiki, if I can, give Reiki and just be love, then that is what I can do. So, yeah, I used to be more in the place of like, I've got to convince them. And now I'm just like, lots of love to you on your journey. And also my own kind of filters, my own filters to not receive, even though there might be judgment coming from that side. If I can kind of use Reiki to filter that so I don't actually, like receive it, then that can also be helpful. And I know sometimes that's easier said than done, especially when it's people that are close to us. So that's just another way that I can use Reiki in those times and in those spaces. All right. Okay. So I think that's it for the talk. We'll go ahead and move into our meditation now. So you can get comfortable. It is going to be a little bit of a different type today. So if you have a pen and paper close by, you're welcome to do some writing. You'd also don't have to, or you can, if you're listening to this later, you can pause before you go to the meditation, and you can get a pen and paper if you would like to. Also, you can just be in the space of Reiki and know that it's talking to you, and maybe write about it later or just go into that deep listening space.